to talk for a second to all the aspiring guitar slingers who watch this video. I'm talking about people who study Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton. Basically, if they play screaming blues leads, you're there, you're studying, you want to learn that stuff. I want to talk to you guys for a second. I want you to envision that you're in a club and there's a house band there. You've got a rhythm guitar, a keyboard player, bass, and drums, and they ask you to come up, and they're just going to jam on blues in E. And they hand you a guitar. It's all tuned up. It's perfect. If you have studied those artists a lot, chances are you've got a few tricks you can pull out, and you can play something that's going to make the crowd happy. What happens, though, if the keyboard player takes a break? Okay, now it's you and a rhythm guitar, bass, and drums. Still pretty good. He's holding down the rhythm. All you have to do is play lead. What happens now if the rhythm guitar leaves? Now it's just a trio, you, bass, and drums. Suddenly, this gets a lot less fun because your job in terms of making music that sounds good gets a lot more complicated. Well, what happens now if the bass and the drummer leave and it's just you and you've got to keep people in the seats until the band gets back? That, my friends, to a player like me, with my history of studying all these guitar slingers, that's the most intimidating thing possible. And I'm guessing that there's a few of you who are like me in that sense, that you've studied playing lead and learning how to play fast, learning how to sound like this person or that person. But if you strip out all of the other supporting elements, you take away the drums, you take away the bass, you take away the keyboard and the rhythm guitar, and it's just you, I'm guessing that there's some of you who get pretty tense thinking about how you're going to create good blues music all by yourself. So if that's you, if you're the kind of person that I'm describing, the good news is I have a course that, and I'm not exaggerating here, it is going to transform your understanding and ability to play blues rhythm guitar and to mix in lead type stuff in a way that allows you to make music almost endlessly. It's called Mixing Blues Rhythm and Lead Volume 1, and I'm going to tell you all about it. But first, you need to know I'm not trying to embarrass you by pointing out, hey, you can't do this, you can't do it. I'm talking about myself. If this is your first video that you've ever seen from me, what you need to know is that I started making lessons and courses in 2007 and have been doing it professionally as my full-time job since 2009. I've been in this space for a long time, and this right now in 2021 is the first time that I am confident enough in what I'm teaching in this course to do it in public, sitting down by myself, just playing some blues, and know that it will come out sounding good. Because I'm that person that I described in the beginning. I'm the person who studied all the guitar slingers and learned enough rhythm to play rhythm, but never learned enough between rhythm and lead to sit down unaccompanied and play something that sounds like music. So what would happen is I would start going to these trade shows, whether it was the NAMM show, whether it was a guitar show or whatever. I would go and I'd see a piece of gear that I was interested in. I would sit down to play, and there's people wandering around, and I would freeze because this isn't like back in my studio where I can put on a track. This isn't like on stage with a band where somebody else can carry the beat. It's just me. And so I would sit there and I would try and play something, and I just would feel profoundly uncomfortable, wondering all the time, is what I'm playing sounding good? Is this enough to impress somebody? What's this going to sound like if somebody's recording it? And it used to be terrifying, and I'd be sweating, my shirt would be drenched. And I look back at some of those videos and I think about what was going through my mind, and it's obvious to me now what the problem was. But what I didn't realize at that time is that I'm doing something that I never practiced or studied for. Everything that I studied was all playing along with songs, playing along with a backing track, or playing with a band, practicing solos. I never practiced sitting down, playing blues all by myself, and I never really studied what can I do that will sound good by myself. And so that is the experience and the history that shaped where I'm at right now and with the course that I'm going to present to you. So the name of the course is Mixing Blues Rhythm and Lead Volume 1. It is a massive course with 11 different sections, and I'm going to walk you through all the sections, but my goal in all of this is I want you to study the course, and the way that you do that is by joining our TXBA Locals membership program at Texas Blues Alley. So that's the goal of all of this, but I want you to know what you're getting. So I'm going to take you through each section of the course right now and describe what you're going to learn. Let's start by imagining two ends of a spectrum. One end is pure rhythm, the other end is pure lead. What is pure rhythm? That's just plain old boring rhythm. Nothing fancy. It follows a very predictable beat of the song. In another style of music, it might be just strumming chords. The other end of the spectrum, lead, is everything that we study. We learn to play solos. We got all kinds of fancy licks. We tend to think of that spectrum as a binary. You're either playing rhythm or you're playing lead. But the key to being able to do what I've described is to realize that it's not just an either-or spectrum. There are all these places in between that aren't really pure rhythm. They're not really pure lead. They're somewhere in between. And the key to being able to do what I couldn't do for so long, and what I'm betting you can't do either, is to be able to start with the rhythm end of the spectrum and gradually mix in all of these different things all across the spectrum, including lead, and going back into the rhythm smoothly so that people don't hear you going back and forth. All they hear is music. So everything about this course was designed with that understanding. The transitions out of rhythm and back into it, that is the secret to making it all work. Now, the other part of it is you have to have some places you know where to go to. You have to know some things in between the two ends of the spectrum, and you have to be able to practice going to those places and then back to your base. And so that's exactly what's in this course. I want you to visualize a really tall building, and I want you to imagine like floor number 12. That's where lead happens, and at the bottom, that's where pure rhythm happens. Okay, so we've changed from a spectrum across to going up and down. One of the things about building buildings, construction, is that the taller the building, generally the stronger and deeper the foundation has to be. So what this course does, I don't actually reach floor 12 in this course. That's going to come in a later volume. We don't actually get to the point where we're playing pure lead licks. We do everything that builds up to that. We start at ground level and we build a nice, big, wide, solid foundation. And then we put a few other foundational stories on and we gradually add some stuff. So by the time you get done with this course, with this first volume, what you are going to have is an extremely solid, broad, sturdy foundation with a few bottom layers added on top, where if you just put a roof on that, it would be a very nice, fine, functional building. But the foundation and the bottom floors are sturdy enough that you could build whatever you want on top of it. That's what this first volume is. It is a foundational course designed to build your rhythm foundation so solid and so broad that whatever lead stuff you learn, you can put it on top of this foundation and it's going to survive. So let's start with section 1. Section 1 is all about establishing a solid base. So what I do is I take you right down to ground level and we review the most basic blues shuffle possible. and I show you how to play that over 12 bars. And then I show you a single note version of that same rhythm. If you've never thought about the fact that you can substitute that for a blues shuffle, that's part of why this course is important, because we are learning all of the things that exist and are possible at the lowest, most foundational level. And then I show you how to take those very basic shuffle and single note rhythms and to move them all over the fretboard. So you can play them down here. 1, 4. I show you how to play the 4 up here and the 5 up here. I show you how to play the 1 up here and the 4, the 5. I show you all the different configurations where you can find that, so that if you only ever studied that lesson, you'd be able to play a blues shuffle in practically any place all over the fretboard. So that's kind of our ground level cement slab block layer underground. That's what we focus on in section 1. In section 2, we interrupt our building process to examine the foundation that we just built. And we work on your hearing, your ability to hear a rhythm in your head and to join in with parts of it and to stay silent for other parts. This is a critical skill because you have to have the rhythm going in your head in order to start mixing things in. So we have like 40 different exercises where I'll have you play something. Pause. You're supposed to keep the rhythm going in your head. And so there's all these different exercises where I'm testing your ability to keep that rhythm going in your head. And all of this is guided. Every single thing that I teach you in this course, I have an exercise to help you study it and master it right there on the spot. There's no confusion about that. So section 2 is we walk back over the foundation we built and we examine it and look for holes and we work on patching those holes. In section 3, we take our very basic rhythm and we add in the first stop just out of home base, and that is rhythm embellishments. Those little rolls, and I show you how to do those rolls, how to use them to hint at the chord change that is coming. I show you how to do it with the single note rhythms. And so if that is as far as you ever studied, you'd be able to play a blues shuffle with these rolling embellishments on all these different places on the fretboard, and you could go on for some time without really repeating yourself. So that's kind of our first level. That's kind of like the capstones on the foundation. I don't even know if that's a real term, but we're kind of starting to build something on top of the foundation that we've built up to this point. In section 4, we add our first big floor on top of the foundation, and that is chords. And we learn some very basic chords. We learn E-form chords for the 1, the 4, and 5. We learn several different 7th variations of those chords, how to move them. We learn A-form chords. We learn different ways that you can play 7th versions of those chords for the 1, the 4, and 5. We learn some different versions of 7th chords that have their roots on the E string and the A string. We learn a cool 9th chord we can play over the 1. So we learn, there's a very small selection of chords that we're learning, but I'm teaching you all over the fretboard where to be able to find them. And so I have all these guided exercises just silly things like that that guide you through learning if I'm playing a one chord, where are all the different places that I have at my disposal? And the reason that this is important is that when you're kind of off of home base and you're out here experimenting with chords and you want to get back in the rhythm, I taught you where all the rhythm locations are on the fretboard, and now I'm showing you where are all the chords that correspond to that chord that you could switch between the chord and the shuffle at that position. And so we're slowly developing our map so that you can get to and get back from all these different places away from the rhythm. In section 5, we start doing something that is kind of a hallmark of this course. We take what we just learned and we integrate it back with everything that we learned previously. So we started by laying a foundation with shuffles and learning them all over the fretboard. Then we added some embellishments, and then we kind of changed course and we learned some chords all over the fretboard for 1 to 4 and 5. Now we're going to take those chords and we're going to integrate them back with the shuffle, and we're going to practice starting with a shuffle. That's just one example, but I have a bunch of different simple strumming patterns, and I'm going to guide you through starting with that shuffle, picking a chord, learning how to switch to the chord and switch back to the shuffle. Like, I'm not assuming anything in this course. I am guiding you every step of the way. And so if all you ever did was study up to this point, you'd have shuffles you can play everywhere. You'd know how to embellish them with these little rolls and how to hint at chord changes. You would know a ton of chords all over the fretboard that you can play, simple chords, not complicated 9th or 13th or 6th or anything like that. Just simple dominant and 7th chords all over the fretboard. And you would know how to switch between playing chords with simple strums and back to a shuffle. Now in section 6, now we're starting to get a few levels above our foundation. We've got a bunch of chords we know. We've got some simple strumming. We've got all our shuffles. Now we're going to add an interesting element called syncopation. And what we're going to do, we're going to add teach you all these different syncopation, kind of more complex strumming patterns that allow you to use a chord in a way that's more than just strumming. It's kind of like lead in that where it's not a pure strum, but it's not really just rhythm. It's not really just lead. It's one of those gray areas that we're learning to kind of blend between rhythm and lead. And so I have all these different exercises teaching you how all these different strumming patterns to apply to these different chords. And it's adding yet another layer of ability over top of your rhythm foundation. Now in section 7, we take those same chords and we do something slightly different with them. Now, instead of using complicated strumming, we start to embellish them. And so I teach you how to do that. I teach you how to do some things with the A-form chords. None of it is too complicated, but what you got to realize is we are building layers of complexity over our foundation, and all of it is usable. Just because we're now doing embellished chords, that doesn't mean that we throw away the syncopation. Everything that we are layering on top of here is usable. So along the way, I teach you how to take the new stuff that I'm doing and we integrate it back with the previous stuff. And you are building essentially a big toolbox full of tools that you can now start to arrange in different ways over a 12-bar progression And suddenly you've got a lot of things to work with where you can start playing for minutes on end using this big collection of chords, using the simple strumming patterns, using complicated strumming patterns, syncopation integrated with the shuffles, and now you've got the embellishments where you can add kind of a rolling feel to the chords. We are, like I said, we are building this rhythm foundation wide, and we are building it strong so that we can layer all kinds of stuff on top of it. Section 8 is all about sliding chords. It's the first element that kind of sounds more like lead. It's not really lead, but it kind of sounds like it. I'm talking, of course, when you hear them played this way, they're called sliding sixths. But I show you different ways that you can play them with different parts of the chords. I show you how to play them over the 1, the 4, and the 5. I teach you, I think they're called sliding ninths. And I say I think because I want to make it clear, I am not expecting you to know a lot of theory through any of this. It'd be helpful if you understood, what a 1, a 4, and a 5 is, but I'll explain some of that, and I have other courses that you can go off and refresh some of that memory if you need to. But I'm not sitting here telling you this note or that note. Some people teach that way, and that's fine, but I specifically make my courses accessible to people who aren't in a position to dedicate the time to learn all that stuff. So a lot of this is kind of theory agnostic. I talk about 1, 4, and 5. I talk about octaves and root notes, and that's about it. So don't let that scare you off. So section 8 is all about sliding chords. Now section 9, we're going to take the chords that we've learned and we're going to learn to arpeggiate them, meaning we're going to play them as a series of notes. So what we do by learning that is we learn how to fill more beats within each measure with single notes. And what is made up of single notes? Lead is made up of single notes. So we typically think of lead as a lick, but this is that really rhythm? It's not really lead, but it's also not strumming chords. It is, I'm just holding a single position, switching between a shuffle and this chord, but I'm playing it as single notes. So section, what are we at? Section 9 now. It's all about arpeggiating, and again, I've got a ton of examples guiding you through each way. There's tablature for each of these exercises, and so we're adding yet another layer on top of our foundation. Now, if you've been paying attention and you're familiar with blues, you might be wondering, why hasn't he talked about turnarounds yet? It's a fairly important part of a 12-bar blues progression. And that is because the way that I'm teaching turnarounds in this course relies on a lot of things that I've taught up to this point, specifically the arpeggiation. Okay, so I have taken great care to structure this course where each level builds on the ones before it so that we can add to it and integrate it with what came before. So at the very end, at section 10, I teach you like 16 variations of different turnarounds that you can end your progressions with. Up until that point, we were just doing very simple, but now I teach you a bunch of different things to use at the end of a 12-bar progression. Now, like the amps in Spinal Tap, this course goes to 11. There is a section 11 at the very end of the course, and the purpose of this section is to help you take everything that we've studied so far and to learn how to use it. The goal of this course is I want you to be able to sit down want you to be able to sit down without me guiding you, and I want you to be able to use all these different levels of knowledge that we've learned and be able to put them together to improvise. And so what I'm going to do in section 11 is we're going to review all the different things that we learned, all the different facts, different chords, different embellishments. We're going to review all the different techniques that we use, the different strumming patterns and the arpeggiation. And I'm going to give you some examples of practically what do you do when you sit down and you start to play. And I'm going to show you how. Well, you pick how you're going to start, and you're going to think about which tools and techniques am I going to use in this measure and then in the next one. And I'll talk about strategies for, picking a simple strategy. I'm going to mix E form chords with a blues shuffle, and I'm going to do that embellishment each time I play a chord. It sounds very unmusical, but that's where it starts. You have to be intentional with using this stuff before you can use it without having to think about it. You have to kind of grease the tracks so much that you don't have to think about, you don't experience any mental friction when you go to use this stuff. So section 11 in this course is all about helping you to review what we've learned, integrate it all together, and start making music. And I promise you this, if you take this course seriously, if you practice the exercises, if you master everything that I'm teaching, by the time you get to the end, you will not need to mix in any licks to sit down and play blues for 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time. You will have at your disposal so many things that blur the line between rhythm and lead that you won't even think about the fact that you're not actually mixing in any licks. We don't even get to that point. We build up to 10 to turnarounds, and then we put it all together, and that's where this volume ends. That's my promise to you, that if you take this course seriously, that's where you're going to arrive at. And then after that, whatever I get to next with this course in terms of adding lead, that's all like, now we're building the skyscraper. But this course, this is the foundation and the bottom few levels that have to be rock solid, and they have to be very sturdy to support whatever you put on top of it. So that is what I've built here. And if you are energized by what I'm talking about here, then join the locals, texasbluesalley.com/locals. Read about it, read testimonials from other people. And when you join, you're going to get everything that I described here. It's going to be in our fantastic online player, each section grouped. There's tablature for all of the different exercises. We've got a ton of features that make it easy to study all the demonstrations with looping, one-click looping that loops the exact right spot just with one click. Interactive tablature. You can slow things down if I'm a little too fast. It is the best experience you're going to have with this course, and I think it will truly transform your blues rhythm playing.